There's been one team in the FBS over the last 4 seasons to start 4-0, the Penn State Nittany Lions. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 5 of the Straight from the Crest podcast.
Hey, Straight from the Crest listeners. Stat Guy Chris here to remind you that this episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at Protocol Beverage. Made by a few dudes in Erie, PA who wondered, why doesn't zero-carb beer exist? Protocol's new light shift gives you the ultimate beer experience with 0 carbs, a mere 80 calories, and they're shifting to what light beer should be. Savor the crisp, refreshing taste without compromising on flavor. Thanks, Protocol.
Chance because this Michigan team can score. It's not like there's some stagnant bunch that relies on their defense.
I think he can win us games. I think, thank you for your service, Cliff. But, I go back and watch last year.
We've got a little baby version of Wendell White, Reggie Bush cooking with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. Katron Allen runs the ball. Nobody wants to tackle and people bounce off.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Straight from the Crest podcast. I'm your host, Michael David Kresovich. Garrett Bastardi joins the show today as we talk about Penn State's 21-7 win over Illinois this past weekend. After we discuss the Nittany Lions win over the Illini, we're going to preview Penn State's showdown with the Bruins of UCLA. Welcome to the Straight from the Crest podcast. Garrett, how are we doing today, brother?
I'm good, Mikey. We're battling through a little illness here, but sometimes you gotta do it for the squad. So we're just
they're saying this is your flu episode. Is that accurate to say?
It sure as hell feels like it, man. It really does. We're had to get ourselves up off the couch for this, but we're here and we're ready to roll.
I just want to say thank you for your service. Happy you're here today. It was fun last week. Obviously, Justin joined the show with us. Penn State comes away with the 21-7 win. You had them 31-14. I had them 29-17. Justin had them 41-13. A little bit closer than the three of us predicted, but nonetheless, Penn State comes away with a convincing win at home, a double-digit win against a team that is respectable in the Big Ten, that they're going to go on and win some games. Just kind of a sloppy game, but at the end of the day, Penn State outgained Illinois 374-219. They were better on third down. They did not turn the ball over once. They forced 2 turnovers, 4 punts, and they punted just once. Dominated time of possession, and really outside of kicking, they dominated almost every stat category. But beginning of the game there, it took forever, I felt, for that game to get there. Just watching the rest of the game Saturday, finally kickoff comes around. Luke Altmaier turns into Johnny Football, drives the field, boom. Fighting Illini are up 7-0. What was going through your head on Illinois' opening drive?
Kind of here we go again. It looked almost identical to what happened against Bowling Green. While the defense is sending a bit of mixed messages, while at the end of the day, 34 yards rushing total given up, 7 points total, no points scored after that first drive. It's fantastic. I don't really know what the first drives have been from a defensive perspective. It just seems very vanilla, very I don't know about you. I thought everybody in the stadium knew a play action to the tight end leaking out to the flat was coming on first and goal, and it was just nobody went with them. And so there's just some interesting little dynamics early on in the game for Penn State that has happened a few times this year. But I said, I don't know if they can overcome something like that, and they clearly can. It's something I would really like to see cleaned up, because, if that turns into 3-4 drives early on and it takes you that long to adjust, you're not going to come back against USC and you're not going to come back against Ohio State. And so, I would just like to see a little bit more maybe aggressiveness. It just looks like we're sitting back and kind of feeling the game out when it's like, hey, we're here to play. We got to get going right off the bat. And so, outside of that, if you looked at, I think it was Stats of War on Twitter, how bad did you beat the other team? Penn State, relative to the rest of the country, beat Illinois from a statistical perspective worse than any other team was beaten all Saturday. And so, obviously 21-7. We'll talk about special teams. That's an issue, but I felt like this probably should have been a cover looking at the stat line. And you have nearly 400 total yards, got to have more than 21 points. And that's also been a pattern that we've seen so far this year. More yards relative to how many points we've scored. That needs to be figured out as well.
Yeah, that for Stats of War, everyone a good follow. His name's Parker Fleming on Twitter, where each week he'll put out a chart that for what Garrett was references, how bad did you win or how bad did you lose a game? And Penn State was at the top, which it didn't feel like it during, because obviously, like we just said, we saw Luke Altmaier in Illinois drive down and score. And yeah, I don't know. It was weird. It was almost like it was a miscommunication on the touchdown because he was just wide open in the flat. And we talked about this before we started recording. Brett Bielema knows Tom Allen's defense. Illinois knows. They went up against Tom Allen for the last 6 years in the Big Ten as a team there. But in terms of the defense, they obviously adjusted. That was the only score of the game for Illinois. I thought obviously the likes of Abdul Carter and Zane Durant came with a couple splash plays, but altogether as a unit, minus obviously with Dom DeLuca being out, the group played phenomenal. AJ Harris comes away with a big interception at the end of the game. Abdul Carter makes the play, and it was a game that wasn't flashy, but it was cuts by 1,000 or death by 1,000 cuts, where it didn't seem like it, but at the end of the game, I looked at the box score and I saw Penn State 21-7, and you look into the numbers, Penn State dominated the game. So that was really the offense or the defensive side of the ball. I'm sorry. On the offensive side of the ball,
what's up defensively? What's up? And I got to be careful with this. And I'm not going to say his name. Okay, I'll just say the number to make it a little bit more clean, I guess. I know his name, but number 7 on Penn State's defense needs to have a good hard look in the mirror as to why the hell he pushed the Illinois guy in the back on AJ Harris's pick 6 return. That I'm not trying to like speak in hyperbole. Like, and maybe this is the clip that you put on Twitter or whatever. That is the single dumbest play I have seen in my 28 years of any sport, anytime ever. Just no reason. Just, I want to F over my team. I don't understand. I don't think I've ever screamed at a TV harder than that, because everybody in the stadium knew exactly what happened. Your freaking Georgia corner who comes over from AJ Harris, Georgia transfer corner, comes in, makes his first big highlight play for Penn State, closes out a game in an emphatic way. I just really had to get that off my chest, because that was without question the lowest IQ football play I've ever seen in my life. Hopefully it was addressed with an up downs or maybe a couple sprints on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it was very unselfish. I think he probably just got caught up in the moment and realized, but it was just, it didn't make sense to me, just like you said, because he didn't even need to touch him, let alone block him.
I mean, Abdul Carter was right in front of him.
I think it may have been an adrenaline bump where he was like, I got to make a play here. I got to do something. It's like, no, you don't. Take your helmet off and walk to the creamery. You don't need to touch anyone. Go to Champs. If you're 21, nice. Go to Champs. You don't need to touch
nice
anyone.
Christian in you, Mikey. That's the nice Christian in you defending him, because
I'm not defending. I thought it was a brain dead play, but I'm trying to think.
You're being, yeah. Whatever. We won, but like, there was no guarantee. I mean, we had seen the previous possessions. Like, man, we could not get the ball in the end zone. Couldn't score a field goal. It's like, boom, game over, and then it's like, oh my gosh. So I had to really get that off my chest.
I don't know what Luke Altmaier was looking at on that play. That was one of the worst decisions I've seen this year, until I was watching Monday Night Football last night. I don't know if you caught this, but Will Levis threw the exact same interception, and they caught him on camera saying, I didn't even see that guy.
I didn't see him. Yeah.
How do you – I remember I had a quarterback coach who one time I said to that, and he looked at me and he goes, what? I don't want to hear that. What do you mean you didn't see him? But – Sam Darnold, Luke Altmaier, or I'm sorry, Sam Darnold, Will Levis, just bad decision makers of the weekend.
In big moments.
Yeah, but before we finish on the defense, just a few stats here. And in pass rush win rate, which we talk about often on the show, which is, did you beat the blocker? It's not, did you make the tackle in the backfield? Did you get the sack? It's, did the defensive line beat the blocker they're going against? Penn State had a 79.5 win pass rush weight, that's a tough word to say, against Illinois this past weekend. That was their highest since 2019. Just excellent efficiency there. Illinois had 21 designed runs for 57 yards, and on 60% of his dropbacks, Luke Altmaier was pressured. So just a tremendous game from Penn State's defense. And let's switch to the offensive side of the ball here, where we saw a trio of young men run the ball into the end zone with Katron Allen, Tyler Warren, and obviously Nick Singleton all accumulate rushing touchdowns, 94 yards for Singleton, 102 for Allen. And Drew completed 15 to 21 for 131 yards, didn't turn the ball over. It seemed like this game plan was just get the ball in space, let the playmakers do their thing. From last year to right now, since we have a sample size of 4 games under Penn State's belt, what is the biggest change that you've seen on the offensive side of the ball, whether it be play calling, whether it be the development of Drew?
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, Penn State being top 5 in the country in explosive play rate is a big change, and I think a lot of that can be credited to Nittany. You know, the offensive line, you know, it was interesting. I was listening to, it might have been Cover 3 podcast, and we were talking about, you know, the departure of Olu Fashanu, right? You know, going to be an unbelievable NFL offensive lineman. And, you know, I don't believe allowed a sack last year, was great in pass protection, but the left side of the line last year was actually a weakness when it came to running the football for Penn State. This year, it's completely different. So, you know, sometimes, you know, maybe there's a little bit more cohesiveness along with that unit at offensive line. And obviously, you know, just 6 yards a pop, you know, 44 rushing attempts for 240 yards, just a dominant performance. So the rushing game being, you know, very Michigan-like, being very Georgia-like in their primes is something that's very encouraging. And then, you know, Drew in some of these bigger games has continued to be a bit of a game manager, which obviously he didn't have to do a lot on Saturday night. I think he's going to have to do some against USC and Ohio State to win. And so I would just kind of like the kid gloves to be taken off him a bit. You know, there was a couple drives where, you know, it was either a 3 and out or, you know, we had the ball in Illinois territory and you go, you know, zone read. And it's like, okay, after the second zone read, Illinois thinks you're running zone read again. Okay. So like maybe let's throw the ball to the best tight end in the country, right? Or some of the best wide receivers in the Big Ten. You know, I would just like to see a little bit more aggression when it comes to allowing Drew to be opened up a bit. But biggest change, rushing game, and then the explosive play rate. And I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line and the offensive coordinator.
It's weird you brought up zone read because that was my next topic here. Which really helped Penn State. 2 of their 3 touchdowns were off some sort of zone read concept, but there were plays where Penn State was too predictable. Just like you said, maybe mix in a pass there, maybe do something else. But that was my biggest complaint. It's just they get too cute when they don't need to. It reminds me of when Kellen Moore was the Dallas Cowboys play caller, when it'd be 3rd and 1 and it would be a double wide receiver reverse to Tavon Austin. When just give Nick Singleton the ball. Just give Tyler Warren the ball in one-on-one coverage. Let your playmakers make plays. But yeah, I think the biggest difference is the play calling. Obviously, that doesn't have to be said, but it's just getting the most out of these players, which I don't think any of the past offensive coordinators could do. Like we're seeing these running backs, we're seeing Singleton and Allen become not only threats with the ball, they're becoming receiving threats. Now and Tyler Warren, the Wildcat concept isn't new to him. He scored one of his first touchdowns ever 2 years ago in Wildcat, but they're finding ways to get their best players involved in different assets of the game, which is just a great sign to see.
Well, and that's what Nittany does. Like he's known for just, I'm going to get the dudes the ball and we're going to make plays with them. And so it's good to see that carryover, you know, and again, it's hard to imagine that maybe he's holding some stuff back for USC and for Ohio State, given all the different formations, you know, all the different concepts we've run to this point. But maybe that's the case. You know, we really haven't had to have an offensive explosion to this point to win a football game. And so I don't think that's coming this upcoming week. But, you know, they're going to need it in a few weeks, potentially on the road at the Coliseum in LA.
Yeah, I think now we're going to transition to the most glaring issue with Penn State, and it's obviously the kicking game. Xander Sahaydak, obviously 0 for 2 on field goals. I know they brought in Ryan Barker at the end of the game. Chase Meyer is a junior here. I'll give you a couple stats here. So Sahaydak was pulled last year. We obviously know that. He was pulled out for the West Virginia game. Did not play the rest of the season, started out, won the kicking battle in the offseason, we can assume because he was awarded being the starter. That's usually how it works. That's what you'd think. Penn State decided that's not enough. We need some security. They brought in Chase Meyer, who spent time at Penn, who's a Pennsylvania kid.
Mhm.
Xander Sahaydak, now Garrett, is 3-9 kicking in his career. He's 1 for 7 beyond 30 yards. And the guy sitting not behind him, but 2 spots behind him, Chase Meyer, he's 17 of 20 and 10 of 13 from 30 plus. Sahaydak has 3 career-made field goals. Chase Meyer has 2 3-field goal games in his career.
Mm.
The
picture seems pretty clear.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know, like I don't know Xander. I don't know, but something's up. Like last year, he's just not a good kicker. He's not a good kicker. You have 3 made kicks in your career.
Mhm.
And first of all, I don't know what it is. I'm not a big fan of left-footed kickers to begin with, but something throws me off with the angle of the camera. But I mean, I'm watching that game. He makes those 2 kicks. We don't even have to get the AJ Harris interception at the end of the game. That's not even in question.
No.
But it may not have mattered against Illinois, but when you have Ohio State coming to you in 2 weeks with more talent than Penn State has, it's going to matter. It's going to matter when you have to go to Oregon. It's going to matter at Wisconsin. It's going to come down to it. It's an issue they have to address. Just what are your overall thoughts on what's going on in that kicking room? Because I know we're not going to sit here and assume maybe I don't know who's healthy. I don't know what confidence they have in their staff, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's all really valid. I think it goes to show, just the inefficiency in, I keep talking about yards versus points scored, right? A general rule of thumb that I've always kind of, heard and followed has been like, 7 to 10 points for every 100 yards you have, right? And so, you look at Bowling Green, like Penn State had 440 total yards, but 34 points. I would like to see anywhere from 40 to 50 points in that aspect, right? Or 37 to 44. Saturday night, 360 total yards, whatever it was, but only 21 points. Just inefficient towards the end of the end of drives and not being able to punch it in either into the end zone or through the uprights. And yeah, I mean, we have not had this kind of issue. Really since it feels like the first year of Bill O'Brien with Sam Ficken, who obviously ended up becoming a really reliable kicker. But that first year it was a struggle. But this program was in a different position then. You could kind of battle it out with him. You can't really battle it out and wait for Xander to kind of get his feet under him. Like that could have cost. Yeah, that's going to cost you a football game. And so there's got to be a competition. I don't know if there's just there's deference being given to him. Someone who has been here, giving him his chance, Pennsylvania kid. It seems clear to me that Chase Meyer is the guy, but we're not in practice. So maybe he shanks everything. I don't know, but 17 of 20 career, pretty decent career. I believe it was at Tulsa prior to here and Penn, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like to me, that's the guy. If it does end up being the guy, the next couple games are going to be pretty interesting because he's an LA kid playing against UCLA and then USC back to back if that's the case. So, it's just not something that we've had to really deal with or be concerned about. But it's I wouldn't say it's 5-alarm fire right now, but it's up there. It's pretty concerning. I'll give it a 3-alarm fire right now. Get out of the building. Don't take the elevator. But the building isn't burning down to the ground yet.
Penn State escapes the special team scare 21-7, as I led off the show with. The only team in FBS to begin last 4 years 4-0, which is pretty remarkable. They got some help with Georgia losing to Bama, which obviously would have been that other team in there, but just a miraculous game there. Now it's home again. The UCLA Bruins come to town. It's a stripe out, noon at Beaver Stadium. UCLA is 1-3 on the season. Its only win is a 16-13 win against Hawaii to open their own season out. 3 straight losses of double digits to Indiana, LSU, and Oregon last week. They haven't topped 17 points one time this season. UCLA is a bunch. They bring 12 guys back. Kind of a brutal schedule for them. They do have 5 home Big Ten games, but they do have to play Oregon, Penn State, Iowa, and LSU. Chip Kelly is no longer there, and he left them in a very, very tough situation. Chip Kelly was not only didn't get them to win many games, he recruited horribly, did not leave their new head coach, Deshaun Foster, who's a first-time head coach who was there, who's a running back coach with the Bruins for a long time. He didn't leave him with a good set. Like I mentioned, they only have 12 starters they bring back. Their offensive coordinator is Eric Bieniemy. You guys might know him. He was instrumental as the play caller when the Chiefs won 2 Super Bowls. They bring back 7 on their offense. Their quarterback, Ethan Garbers, he's a guy last year who was the starter, got injured, then came back in a bowl game. And he's thrown 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on the season. His favorite target is Rico Flores Jr. He leads the team with 187 yards. This is a team that's only scored 4 touchdowns all season. Outside of Rico Flores, Maliki Matavo is their second receiving option at tight end. And TJ Harden Jr. has 125 yards on 41 carries with just 1 touchdown on the ground. Garrett, from what you've seen from this Bruin team this year, what do you make of them?
Yeah, the one half that stands out to me is being tied at the half in Death Valley at LSU. Shows me that I'm looking for something here, Mike. It shows me they at least have a pulse, like they can go into a tough environment, and at least put up somewhat of a fight. They're a historical program, a coach that's eager to kind of show his weight as a head coach. Obviously, an offensive coordinator who's had a lot of experience and has had a lot of success, but they've only topped 300 yards once this season. It was against Hawaii, right? And so, last week against Oregon, their only touchdown was an interception return. That game was 34-13, and that was closer than it appeared, right? I mean, Oregon went down to the Rose Bowl and was let's just get out with a W by any means necessary. So, my first impressions are it's not going to take a lot to score. You're not going to need a lot of scoring from Penn State's offense to win this game. I'd be shocked if UCLA is able to put together 2 or more scoring drives. Which leaves them at a max of 10 to 14 points, and if Penn State can't cover that, then it's going to be a little bit of that's a little bit concerning. And so I would liken them. I think they're a step below Bowling Green, but they're potentially going to have a different quarterback under center, and so you never know. With that, we haven't seen a different quarterback from them all year, other than Garbers, and so how Penn State prepares. The biggest thing for me is going to be not looking ahead. It being a noon game after an emotional win, in a whiteout energy game. And so, not looking ahead to USC the following week and what will probably be the biggest college football weekend of the year, at least regular season. So all things that are in Penn State's control, this game should not be close. But it's UCLA is going to be kind of hungry to show somewhat of a pulse. I feel like we're probably going to get their best shot. The last thing I would say is, not easy traveling 3 time zones eastward to go play. This is their first game all the way east in the new Big Ten. They did go to LSU a few weeks ago. That's not a massive deal, but them going out to Happy Valley and playing a game that would be 9 a.m. local time for them, that's going to be hard. Yeah,
as Garrett mentioned, it's their Big Ten opener here on the road. I'm sorry, their road opener. UCLA in the past is 3-5 in their last 8 conference openers. Of course, that was not the Big Ten conference. UCLA is 4-2 all time against Penn State. They have not met since the 60s. The last time Penn State defeated the Bruins, Jack Ham blocked a punt in 1968 as Penn State won 21-6. Since 2015, we'll get a little stat here before we get into predictions here. Since 21, we're in a spot where Penn State's a favorite of 15 or more, a Big Ten home favorite. Penn State's 17-11 against the spread there, and the under when Penn State is a favorite of 15 or more is 19-11. So those of you looking to handicap the game, I would say Penn State and the under, which has pretty much been the story of Penn State this year, outside the last 2 or our last game there. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of seeing the culmination of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten here. We're getting that first look at it, and we're going to get the next 2 weeks. I'm excited to see new colors inside of Beaver Stadium. I always like that. That was neat. Just actually going to the game here. But let's move into the prediction segment of the show. Give me your first touchdown score, and who do you like to win this game?
I'll go Tyler Warren scoring on another inside the 5 Wildcat. Just getting creative, on that end. And then I think I like the under as well. I think that's an interesting stat. Again, I just don't think Penn State's going to show too much of their hand in this one. And so I like 34-10, which would not be a cover, but it would be the under. And yeah, I mean, again, get out, no injuries. Would love a quick start. Would love a 24-0 at the half type deal rather than maybe 17-7 at the half where it's just close enough where the one thing I'd say is Penn State has let a couple, even West Virginia before the last 20 seconds of the first half, they've now let a few teams just kind of hang around, right, a little bit longer than they should. I would like to see this game put away earlier. I think that's my big takeaway. So I like 34-10. Would love to see it 24-0 at the half, and I like the under.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State's defense has been spectacular this year. They've allowed 9 points in the entire second half of the 4 games, and they have yet to allow a team to score in the third quarter. I think it's massive that Penn State gets a strong start on both sides of the ball and really puts this game away before halftime. Right now, I don't think Garber's their quarterback is questionable. If he can't go, it'll be a guy by the name of Justin Martin under center for the Bruins, who has 5 career passing attempts in 2 seasons. I don't think UCLA finds the end zone. I think this is a game where Penn State controls it from the beginning to the end. I think it's a 34-3 Nittany Lion victory. As far as first touchdown scores go, I think it's Amari Evans on a deep ball. I think this will be a passing extravaganza for Penn State. I think Drew puts up record type numbers against this defense that doesn't get to the passer or take the ball away. They have 5 sacks all season, and I think Penn State's O-line has looked fantastic in giving Drew a clean pocket, and I think that continues. So we both like the Nittany Lions to win, obviously. We're going to move into our favorite segment here. For those first-time listeners, viewers, for Big Ten games, Garrett and I have done this for the last 4 years. We pick our favorite alumnus from the team Penn State goes against. And UCLA is the first time that they're new to the Big Ten. We've yet to draft UCLA alumnus, so we're going to start today. I'm going to get first pick because I've had first pick since November 2nd, 2021. The first pick for me, I'm going to go Troy Aikman as a Cowboy fan. Won 3 Super Bowls with Dallas and led the Bruins to success there. So Troy Aikman is my first pick.
I'm going to go Nicolas Cage. Very, very easy first pick for me. Probably my favorite actor of all time. Just hot take, but just you can hear Bonnet in the background maybe barking at that. I think maybe some of the listeners might bark back at that comment too. And then last week I picked political figure Jesse James. I'm going to go Ben Shapiro, my second pick today.
I'm also going to go in that direction with the BS abbreviation. Ben Stiller.
Okay.
Ben Stiller is one of my favorite actors. The documentary Night at the Museum just is a great historical film. And for the
totally
real, take it back around. And my second pick is Chase Utley. Obviously, growing up in Pennsylvania, playing the infield, batting lefty, Chase Utley was the man. And Chase Utley is my final pick.
Okay. My last pick, man, there's unlike last week against Illinois, there's too many people to pick for UCLA. Gosh, do I want to go someone who has mended fences in Jackie Robinson, or do I want to go Steve Martin? We're going Jackie Robinson. Just keep it with that, keep it with the sports theme, and obviously with the passing of Pete Rose today, just keep it in the baseball theme. So Jackie Robinson, my third pick.
Yeah, the honorable mentions here. I also had James Franco, Trevor Bauer, the great late Bill Walton, who was a great Bruin, great Celtic, and Ed O'Bannon, who was notorious for taking college sports away from us. It was O'Bannon versus NCAA. It's okay. The games are back. We're good.
It is back. It is back. It's 10 years we're not getting back, though, because of him.
But we will be back next week for the USC
big one
show. Or are they on a bye? Does Penn State have a bye next week?
No, October 12th,
Okay,
USC.
That's right.
You're not
'cause they're
going to be
leaving
leaving
Thursday.
Ouch. We might have to take a couple minutes and preview some of the other games that day because it is
We will
out of
have a
control.
big show. We'll have a big
Yeah.
show. But this, as always, guys, are presented by Protocol Beverage. Try their Lightning Strike beer. Must be 21 to enjoy. Link in description. Put in your zip code. It'll show where the nearest distribution center is. Go pick up a 6-pack. Thank you all very much for the support. We did great numbers on the video last week. I'm not going to say it was because we had Justin on it, but thanks, Beckaroo, for that. But Garrett, thank you as always for joining the show, my man.
Yeah, thank you, Mikey. Appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.